Jeremiah 14 through 17. I'd like to deal with two texts, one in 16 and one in 17. Jeremiah 16, starting in verse 14, says this, "Therefore the days are coming, says the Lord, that the Lord will bring up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them," which means at the end of exile. Jeremiah is looking forward to the end. God will, and we have different names for this group, Israel, the elect, remnant, that you idea, the plural you that we've talked about, Judah. But here's what God says through Jeremiah about this end time. "I will bring them back into their land, which I gave to their fathers." How will he do that? How will he bring Israel back? As he just said, he's going to bring them from the north and from all the lands. Well, how do you gather like that? He uses an interesting illustration or two. "Behold, I send for many fishermen, says the Lord, and they shall fish them. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them." So by hunting and fishing, as it were, throughout the world, God will bring in other people from other lands. And from every mountain, from every hill, and out of the the holes of the rocks, "O Lord, my strength and my fortress, my refuge in the day of my affliction." And then he literally says, "The Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth." So again, there is that hint coming out of the Old Testament in numerous parts of our story that Israel is going to be refashioned as a nation. Still calling it Israel because the promises go back to the founder of Israel, Abraham. But as we hear again in this story, the final version of this group, though it has the name of Israel, it will include Gentiles as well. Well, here is that story then in Matthew 4 where Jesus comes to his disciples, who some of them are professional fishermen, and he uses that phrase, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." I really think that echo of that text would have been in the minds of those who knew their Torah, especially Jeremiah, well. That in other words, it's not just a general call to evangelism, but it was Jesus saying to these men that through them and through the 70 that he then sends out in the book of Luke, who do go into Gentile territory, that there's going to be a special emphasis in Jesus' ministry through these 12 disciples and others to bring in those Gentiles. So I find Jeremiah 16 having an echo in Matthew 4. But one other verse is in Jeremiah 17. It's a common verse that is used in the sense of being plucked out and theology surrounding it. So let me read it in its context. I'm going to start in 17:7. "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord," the standard word for loyalty, "and whose hope is in the Lord." Again, the idea of when you go through the struggles of life, which are a common element, of course, in the story of humanity. Where is your hope? "Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh and whose hope is in Yahweh." It's like a John 3:16 kind of statement. "For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Now that passage, that's Jeremiah 17:9. That's often lifted out and used as an argument that men are totally depraved and that all men are evil, and this kind of verse is often used to define it. But notice the context of where it came in. He just said that there are those who hope and those who trust. The question being posed by this is, well, how do we know, remember how our story goes, how do we know who in the human world is doing that? How do you read a person's heart? That is a deceptive part of a person. You can hide your heart's intentions. You can keep them from another person. So the question, or the idea of that verse, is not to make a case for the evil of man. He just said that there are those who do hope and trust in Yahweh. The argument or the question that's being posed by that verse is, how do you know who is hoping and who is trusting? And the next verse answers that, where it says, "I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. The answer to Jeremiah 17:9 is Jeremiah 17:10. The only person who can search each individual heart, and after all, this is an individual question, who is going to compose the elect, recomposed Israel, as it were? Who is going to be in that final group? The only way to judge that is by a person's heart, and the only person who knows that heart, of course, is Yahweh.